Hello, I'm Sarah Hewins, and this is the Community Steps Up. With us today are Equus and Jordan Trundy of Red Meadow Farm, and Brian Wick, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association. Thank you all so much for being here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
I want to start with you, Equus, if I can. Just tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be in Carver and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so my background is that I am a virtualization engineer. I work full-time in IT, and prior to 4 years ago, we were living in Hull doing IT, and the pandemic happened, and we realized it was very crowded, and we were spending a lot of time inside. So we wound up we found up the farm while looking for a new home, and we came during the perfect time of year, during harvest season on a cranberry farm. We had 24 hours to make a decision, and we decided to go all in and learn how to be a cranberry farmer from there. I'd spent some time growing up working in horse stables and gardening on a home scale. Jordan came from Maine, where he had spent some time on blueberry farms, but we didn't have a formal background in agriculture. We just appreciate being outside.
That's a good beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jordan, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Equus covered most of it, but I would say, growing up in Maine, we did pick blueberries, like wild blueberries as a kid. So I grew up near Bangor, where there's it's very mountainous, and there's a lot of wild blueberry growers. So I had a little bit of experience there, but came down to Wheaton College for college in Norton, and that's where I met Equus, and we were both actually in an IT program there working help desk, and that's how we met each other, and been together now 14 years, and so yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and from there we really decided that we wanted to take on an experience. I wanted to be somewhere more rural again, like where I grew up. So when we visited the house in Carver, we just really fell in love with it and wanted to, decided we wanted to spend our lives doing something different, and cranberry growing seemed like a really great option, seemed like something I was very interested in exploring. I always like taking on new challenges and learning new things, and so it was a perfect opportunity to do that. And I have to say, the IT skill set, I think, really helped us a lot, because it's a lot of problem solving to figure out how do we take on this new journey and how do we continue to learn and grow. And I think it's constantly an evolving experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. That's quite a leap to make. And so, tell us a little bit about your farm. What's the main focus at your farm?
Yeah, so the primary focus of our farm is obviously the cranberry crops and cranberry growing. Secondary to that would be agriculture. Agritourism. So we take people into our bogs in waders, allow them to come and visit our bogs during our harvest season, and grab a set of our waders and go into the bogs and experience the actual corralling part of the harvest. We had people travel sort of from all around the world. We had people from Japan and Sweden, and it was amazing last year. And we've decided that that's going to be a core component of our farm and business. We also opened a farm stand, so we have a few other varieties of crops, a vegetable garden. We have blueberries and blackberries and raspberries, and then some apple and pear trees. And so those, along with bees that we do some work with honey and eggs, and so that's all going to be available in the farm stand starting this year. And so those are sort of the major components of the business right now. But we're going to try to keep it small. We like to we're very interested in sustainable agriculture, regenerative growing, and so that's a core component of our values and identity. And so we want to keep that going and keep our farm small and just continue to focus on that.
So by sustainable agriculture, what exactly do you mean?
So sustainable agriculture, what that means is that for the things that you're taking out of the ground or the earth or the environment, that you're putting back in to that, what you're doing in terms of nutrients. So if, for example, with soils, you might be taking or extracting a lot of nitrogen, or you might be, or other compounds, I should say. So the concept is that any of those resources that you're taking from the earth, that you're adding them back in. And so ways that you can do that would be, for example, with weeds around the bog, right? The traditional practice may be to use specific chemicals to deal with those things. We will look at alternative options to be able to handle weeds. For example, Japanese knotweed is an invasive plant that is very much all around Carver. Rather than use a chemical to treat for that, what we do is we actually take our sheep around the bog and we have them eat that knotweed, and it actually ends up killing off or dying back that particular weed. So that's an example of what sustainable agriculture is, and we've been trying to find many different ways to do that and different practices around our farm to be able to just help the environment, right?
Oh, it's a good example. Do you have goats as well?
We just have the sheep.
Just the sheep.
They're all retired from a meat farm, so they're living out their retirement, mowing our lawn, basically.
That's great.
They've been really great, as Jordan says. They're a big part of our weed control scheme. A great thing about sheep is that they don't like cranberries, so they don't go in the bogs at all, but they can walk on those steep ditches. So that's where most of the weeds wind up coming in and taking over, and the sheep are very happy to take care of those for us.
I just mentioned goats because I know they like poison ivy.
Yes.
Goats
Yes.
are very handy that way. Right. So what is different about growing cranberries? What's more difficult or easier than, say, for any other of the things that you grow that you've found?
I think, well, one of the biggest things about cranberries is that they have such a different growth cycle and requirements than a lot of other plants do. They're perennials, so they stay in the same place year over year. Our vines are actually about 40 years old, which is young for this area. Every year, their Triple CGA gives out awards for 100-year-old bogs, and there's like several every year.
Right.
So you're taking care of a very established plant. And when people are familiar with the ditches that are dug around the bogs, that's actually routing an entire river around the plants. For every acre of grown cranberries, you need about 3 acres of environment around it to make sure that they grow. You can't just plant these in your backyard.
Right.
So a lot about managing cranberries is managing access to water and the entire environment around your farm, because if all of you on the river together are working with the same water source and the same pressures from insects and, you know, a plant that doesn't go anywhere,
Right.
you really have to take care of the entire area around you, as well as take care of your neighbors, because your neighbor's success is directly related to your own success.
Yeah, that is one of the things that has become very clear on this show, how much farmers are interdependent and help one another, cranberry growers in particular. Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have on your farm right now? When you first started versus now?
Yeah, what are we?
So you came here, the bogs were already existing.
Yep.
So that was a plus. You didn't have to start fresh with that. Would you say just learning how to grow cranberries, or is it that plus the other plants and the animals you raise?
I think in the beginning, there was so much that we didn't know that it felt easier than it does now. Because now you can tell all the things that you're like slipping on every year.
Okay.
Some of the things that we're working on right now are, like Jordan was talking about, continuing to investigate different sustainable or unconventional growth methods that might be able to use different types of fertilizers or chemigation practices, or kind of rethink how we're doing that now that we're coming up on the end of a sales contract. We can kind of put more serious thought into, well, now we know how this works, but how do we want it to work on our farm? We also, one of the recent things that we sort of resolved was the question of pollinators on our farm. Normally, people rent bees on cranberry bogs to take care of, make sure everybody is pollinated in the spring. If they're not pollinated, you don't get fruit.
Right.
But since we're small enough that we felt like we could probably just raise the amount of bees that we'd have to be renting, we spent a lot of last year developing an apiary and trying to get bees on our farm year round. That also helps our vegetable garden and
Right.
hopefully our neighbors' gardens as well, because
Yeah.
they can fly pretty far. So I think we're, not to say that we're moving beyond basics, because there's certainly a lot of basics we're still not A+ in, but we're kind of coming to a really fun point now where we can start to experiment a little bit, because we know enough to try to do different things where we feel like we could add some insight.
Just to add to that,
Sure.
I think the same problems that exist for all the growers in the area, like pest pressures and frost, like, you know, we just went through our kind of spring frost period, but it was a very active frost season for a couple of weeks. And so that's always something that we're trying to learn how to better mitigate, right? We have obviously automations for our pumps and everything, but every season is so different. The 4 that we've had so far, I think the first year we had a drought, the next couple of years we got a lot of rain, and so you're always combating that, right? And we also had, we hadn't sanded our bogs in many, many years because of the kind of handover between us and the previous owner. So we learned the sanding process this year. So every year there's something new that we learn about the industry and the practices, right? And it was really time, like well overdue for sanding. And so we learned that, but then we got all this rain. And
Right.
so the people would comment as they drove past our home that, you know, it was like there was Lakeview property because we had so much water in the bogs during that sanding season. So that plus the pest, the pest pressures during the summer, we're already starting sweeps to see what kind of insects we have in the bogs, but we also think of that related back to the bees, right? What pest, like mites and things, might be affecting our bees, right? And then also, how do we make sure that we can overwinter our bees by making sure that the chemicals we're using, we're applying them at specific times and so forth to make sure that the bees can still be maintained, right? And so there's a lot of balance and juggling act that constantly happens every year.
So your farm reminds me a lot of one that was run for many, many years by a couple named Dot and Jack Angley. They had busloads of people coming in, similar kind of thing.
They're probably the first to do cranberry ag tourism.
I think
was
were they
Flax
the
Pond.
first?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is what I'm really interested in here is what's your way of promoting your agritourism? And I'm ashamed to say I had not heard of you, and I live in Carver too. So what, except for Brian, he's the one who introduced you to me. So what do you guys do to get people to come to your farm and participate?
Well, we initially started with advertisement through the Triple CGA's website. So they have a page where you can go and visit and see all the local bogs that support, where you can buy cranberries, where you can pick your own cranberries, and also where you can tour and do tours and events. So that was how we sort of initially broke out. And then I think from that, just the amount of traffic that we were getting through their website actually kind of pushed our page or our website up to the forefront on like Google for right, if you're doing a search. But search engines, you would then see Red Meadow Farm, right? If you're going to that, so a lot of it's web traffic. I mean, some of it's word of mouth, But we don't do a ton of advertising. Like this is sort of an event that we do annually, and it's pretty small. We have a small window that we do it, and that's to protect our time and protect the the farm and make sure that we're able to do all the necessary farming tasks that we need to do. So we really don't spend a lot of advertising money, but we do get our website up. We maintain that. We are very active on our social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and really that's all about just showing people what farm life is about, right? Small farming is about. And so we're really passionate about making sure that people understand like what's the joys of living on a farm and what's the challenges, right? Like one of our videos that went viral was me struggling to put in a sprinkler head, an impact sprinkler head for one of our bogs last year. And people just love to see what the experience of being a small farmer is like. And so we try to share that with, our community and I guess the world with social media. So.
Mm. So tell us more about that. What are some of the joys of what you do?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing for me is you just become a lot closer to the lands that you're on and the seasons that you're taking part in. One of the really critical things about farming is that you really are working on a very slow time. You've got a lot of stuff to do, but most of the stuff you're working on is on a year timeline. You can only plant tomatoes once.
Right.
If you mess up your tomatoes, you need to wait till next year to do it again. Same thing for decisions that you're making about frost. It's only going to frost in April. If you mess it up, you need to wait till next April to learn to do better. So you wind up becoming a lot more focused on the little details to notice, all right, this is exactly what the temperature was like today, and this is what the weather has been, and like, look, I already see the robins out, or these trees are blooming. I think we're safe to start planting this, or to start irrigating this way, or, this would be the right time to put the pumpkins in, whatever. So it makes you notice a lot of things that I think you might not ordinarily notice. And it's just walking around the farm. I do most of the animal chores. So it really kind of gets you to a place where you're, I'm working with chickens and sheep every day. I mean, that's a pretty awesome thing in itself for me. I've got a dog who follows me around the farm, some cats who help me out as well. I mean, it's just it feels very, this is fundamentally what humans do. Is you stand by the river and you graze your sheep. I mean, this is like cavemen were doing this. It feels very, it just feels very universal, to be doing something like that, and to see the interplay between different plants and animals, and how things go when humans aren't taking too much active control over them.
Right. Yeah. Not everyone is so lucky to be able to have that experience. So. I'm not quite sure I get how you decided to do this. I know you gave me the original, the short version, and you had been involved with blueberries, but this is a big leap to take and to start. And I don't know how many growers are actually in a similar situation. Brian, you would be able to tell us more. Is it a large community that has done this kind of thing?
No, this is rather unique. It's not the typical path.
Okay.
We have a lot of multi-generational cranberry growers, so the farms get passed down from family to family.
Right.
And then we do have some, this is a great example to show that there is still energy, enthusiasm to get into agriculture and cranberries and specificity. But coming from virtually no ag background into ag is fairly unique, but it has been done before. There's other cranberry growers who have just jumped in and figure it out as they go. I think, as it's been alluded to or spoken to here, it's a small community. There's a lot of cranberry growers in the area, 300 or so in southeastern Massachusetts. Right. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a small industry, and we really do, as an industry, try to stick together, work together, help each other out. There's not a lot of competition or secrets. There's sharing of information, sharing resources. So I'm sure you're finding that to be a big part of helping you go. Plus, we have the UMass Cranberry Station, which we've talked about in the show before, who provide the science behind a lot of this. And assuming as well you've reached out to them and worked with them on various aspects. So there is some support to help figure it out. So it's not completely on your own. But those decisions that come at 12 o'clock at night, do I turn the pumps on for frost or not? There's always going to be decision making on your own. But there is at least some science and some support behind that. But their path is definitely not the norm, but pretty cool.
I think for me anyway, and I think you've said similar, you mentioned earlier that with the IT background, it's just about how do you solve a problem? How do you see a really huge problem and get kind of excited by it instead of scared of it? Farming is nothing but problems, things that you don't really have the skill set for, but you're like, I think I could probably figure that out. Or I know I can ask a guy. There's somebody I know who can walk me through this. And so that's, I think, a big part of it is just always having something to learn and something to do and something to get better at. Farming is nothing but that. And I think on the other level, there's, we mentioned we both went to Wheaton, and the motto of Wheaton is that they may have life and have it abundantly. And I think that kind of drives a lot of the strange things we probably do together is the idea of having an abundant life, like keep pushing the boundaries of what you're comfortable with. If you see beauty, go for it. You should worry that you don't know what you're doing, but like you don't know what you can do until you try to do it and reach out. And like Brian said, the community is incredibly supportive around here. We wouldn't be able to do this without the amount of help that we've found. And once you've realized that you can ask for help and you can learn things in one aspect, that really informs your whole life. You can do that with anything in your life, your job, your home. You can be the person that you want to be. And I think a lot of being on the farm is creating that environment that we want to live in,
And to Brian's point, I just want to say, I don't want to give the impression that this isn't hard or difficult, right? We took a leap of faith here, and it's been working successfully for us, but there's certainly been moments where we've been very stressed, where we're not sure if this is, always the right decision, but we come back to it and we kind of reflect year after year now, and we say, no, this is really working for us, and we really love it. And I think it's through those challenges, through the difficulty, that you find more joy in it, right? Is that need for, if you're a problem solver, farms are a great thing to do. And there's a lot of media now that represents that, right? We didn't watch any of that media, but if you go out and look at a bunch of streaming sites, or you go and watch movies, there's a lot of stuff now talking about this kind of return to agriculture, and a lot of technical people really wanting to get back into that. And I think it's sort of a small movement in the country for people that want to find small farms and do this, that they just see that as a challenge that they love, right? And it becomes a labor of love.
That's great.
Farming it's a way of life, it's a lifestyle. Which certainly is not for everyone because of those challenges that come with it. It can be very stressful. So not everyone is cut out to be a farmer. But certainly if you have that problem-solving mindset, that's definitely what farming is. Every day, as you all know, it's a new challenge. You're fighting what nature is throwing at you. So it's always unpredictable, and that's also what can be exciting about it too.
So where is your farm?
We're in Carver. We're on Meadow Street.
Okay.
So kind of near Edaville. We're lucky enough to be right near one of the largest cranberry farms in Massachusetts, and ours is a very small farm, but even so, we've felt really lucky to be surrounded by giants in that way, because there's all our neighbors are cranberries and cranberry people, so we're in the heart of cranberry country.
Yes, yes, you are. How many acres do you have of cranberries?
We have only 7 acres of cranberries. The farm is 17 acres total, and that's actually really typical of Massachusetts cranberry farms, is that they're still mostly family owned and still
Right.
mostly fairly small like this.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you, looking down the road, what would you advise young people start wanting to do this? What would you say to them?
I'd say do research, find out, what your passion is, especially if it's cranberry growing, right? Like, spend some time, at a bog, spend some time doing some tours. We originally did the Edaville Cranberry Festival, I think they hosted it years ago, and we came and we saw people corralling and loading berries. And so I think that was our first kind of experience or exposure to that. So I would say find those events that make you understand, is this what I want to do? Is this something that I want to take on as a challenge? If you have the opportunity to work on a farm, even better, right? But I would say get exposure, do your research, find out what it is that drives you when you're learning about these things, because there's many ways to interact with the cranberry industry as well that aren't necessarily just being an owner and grower, right? We work with many people that work on mechanics for our equipment. We work with people that help with, research, the UMass Cranberry Station. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different opportunities to get involved in the community.
What about you, Equus? What would you say?
For folks who are thinking that they want to get into agriculture, I would say do it, honestly. I think that I would agree that you should do some research. Ideally, if you've had some kind of background, like you've had a garden before, you know kind of what's going on. Certainly do some more research to figure out, the differences between gardening for yourself and commercial farming. Like there's a scale element there that will surprise you no matter what, probably, if you're not in the industry to start with. That said, you're never going to know all the answers. You're not going to know the things that you don't know can break because you didn't know they existed, or that there's even a skill set associated with something. You can't know everything. If you really feel like this is going to make your life have some kind of meaning here, or it seems like something that you'd be very motivated to continue learning about, you just need to do it. There's no time to start other than right now. If you start earlier, you'll learn faster, you'll learn more. You just need to do it.
I like that. I like that advice. So you mentioned earlier, Jordan, to me, talking about the ways in which the Growers Association has helped you guys. Just tell us a little bit about that. I know there are lots of regulations. There are also lots of exemptions, agricultural exemptions. Just give us a snapshot of some of those issues.
So I think when we initially joined, it was really a lot about education. We have adopted a lot of the tools that the CCCGA has given us. They have a program, Box Online, which is I was originally introduced to help manage and record what we're doing in terms of our farm records, right? So we know when we're putting on sprays annually, when we're doing our sanding, and we can keep track and record of that online. We worked with the CCCGA when Carver was looking at some legislation that could have impacted us, and got a lot of information about that and an understanding of how that might impact us, and I think allowed me to both speak to and vote more eloquently, right, in our town meetings. I think we also work with the Triple CGA on a lot of different opportunities and initiatives. We serve on a few different boards. Probably can't name them all, but I know Frost Committee, the Cranberry Educational Foundation,
Marketing
Marketing
Committee.
Yeah. So and
What was
those
the other one?
those help us,
Marketing and-
but also
Marketing Promotion Outreach
Okay.
Committee.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. So in doing so, we learn a lot more, right, about how to better market ourselves, better promote ourselves, better engage and help with the community and do community outreach. So I think that there's a lot of different benefits to being a Triple CGA member, and and now we're actually doing some fun stuff with them in terms of putting together an article coming soon. I'm not sure if I can say what it is, but it's related to bees, so it'll be fun. So it's it's a lot of there's a lot of ways to engage with the Triple CGA, which we're really proud of being members of.
The regulation you spoke of that you were afraid would have a negative impact, is that something you can talk about here? I don't know.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
me see if I can. Do you want to go, Brian?
Well, there was an earth removal. That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a citizen bylaw proposal
Okay.
to regulate earth removal on cranberry agriculture, and sand is one of the most two vital natural resources that
That's right.
a viable cranberry bog needs to have.
Absolutely.
And the way it was written would have basically eliminated any type of use of sand on cranberry properties,
Okay.
which would have had a devastating impact on so many facets of just basic maintenance and upkeep of bogs,
Of course, yeah.
improvement of them if the grower was either in process or had planned a renovation project where they're going
Yep.
to strip off the old vine material, bring in fresh sand, replant.
Yeah.
So it really would have had a significant impact.
Hmm.
And so it was something that we were very concerned with, and we got some education of the growers so they were aware of it, and then we just collaborated together and did some community outreach to help amplify why that was so concerning.
Right.
And that's something that I've been a part of many boards and committees in my community, and I know it's a very important part of it. And I know people can and have and will continue to do citizen petition type things. The downside that I see of that, as a member of those past committees, is that you lose a lot of the broader picture when you have something go through more of the formal rulemaking process.
Right.
And that's what I think was really lacking here. Besides the not understanding the full picture of what this may have done. The intentions may have been valid in the applicant's mind, but it certainly had a much bigger impact, I'm sure, than was ever understood.
Well, I remember that now that you
Yeah.
explain it. Yes, that was a little scary because it felt to me and to a lot of people that there was a lack of education underneath that lack of understanding of exactly why sand is necessary and
Right,
why
right.
so much sand is necessary. And if you don't know that, then it's a big break between
Right.
reality and thinking that it's helpful.
And we're trying to, as an association, trying to do our part to do more education of our communities
Right.
about not just sand, but water and chemicals, fertilizers. Why do cranberry growers do what they do?
Right.
To help people understand, because it is in their backyards. And I grew up near a cranberry bog, and I didn't know anything about cranberry production until I got into it.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that people aren't just going to naturally know what's going on. And we have a
course.
lot of people moving in to the area that come from non-agricultural parts of the state or country. So there's a progression, and we need to do our part to help educate those communities. And we have growers like the Trundys who are helping us amplify that message.
Yeah, yes. My short story that I told, I think, on the very first show we did about cranberries was that when we first moved to Carver, we had lived for a period of time in Mississippi where they grow catfish. And they grow them in ponds with dike roads around them. And we came up here in the winter, and there was snow all over, and we were looking for a house, and I turned to my husband and said, "Oh, they have catfish up here." He said, "No, Sarah, those are cranberries." But it looked just the same. So I knew nothing about it when I first got here.
Yeah.
So it's a big learning curve.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me again, you're on Meadow Street. So the river that runs through your property, is that the Wee-Wee-Antic?
That's right. We're the very last farm on the Wee-Wee-Antic.
Ah.
We're at the very end of the river. It turns into swamp directly behind our farm.
Okay. So, and it goes right through your bogs.
That's right.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to share? This is your chance. We'd love to hear.
Well, we will be doing our Wade in the Bog and Bog Tour events again in October, so October 4th through the 13th. There is reservations on our website now.
And your website is?
Our website is redmeadow.net.
Okay.
And yeah, we're really looking forward to obviously the summer, but then coming into the fall harvest as always. We think it's the most joyous time of year. We love to invite people over to experience and enjoy what we get to enjoy as part of that harvest. And so that's why we kind of do it as sort of an open house for our events, but it's a short window, so
Yeah.
we hope people can join us for that. And yeah, I think, you know, we're excited to continue to expand our farm stand, which has products from all 6 New England states and focuses primarily around Massachusetts and Carver. We have a lot of Carver artisans that, you know, bring their products to our store as well, but we expand it to all parts of the region. So I hope to have some blueberry stuff from where I grew up in Maine. We usually have some syrup from there as well. So yeah, we're just really excited to continue to kind of grow that part of our business and take care of our farm.
So when you say farm stand, we're not talking about an umbrella and a little table. Sounds like it's a bigger production than that.
Yeah, that's right. It's a structure that's right on Meadow Street. So if a lot of people anyone who travels Meadow Street probably has seen it, but it has a big Red Meadow sign on one side of it, and then it has plaques on the other side with the different products that we have, and a sign that says the farm stand at Red Meadow. So it's a small shed with a parking lot. So we're planning to open June 15th for the season, and then we'll run through at least through harvest and hopefully through the holidays as well. But yeah,
That's terrific.
yeah.
I'll be sure to stop by. Sounds
We
good.
do.
Anything else from you, Equus?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of stuff here. To echo Jordan, we're really looking forward to seeing what year 4 brings us, and especially forward to continuing the opportunities to work with our community and the folks in our community to learn more about what's going on and share what we're doing with folks around us.
Well, thank you both for being here. Thanks to you too, Brian.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.